My tire blew at 75 and the car snapped right, then left again. I overcorrected and went off the highway like I got flicked. Airbags punched my face. Glass spit into my hair. The car landed nose down in a ditch so deep the road vanished above me. Headlights kept streaking by up there. Nobody saw me. The impact didn't feel like one hit. It felt like a series, front end slamming, rear end whipping, then the whole car dropping and bottoming out. Something in the trunk area popped like a gunshot. The steering wheel yanked my arms, and then the airbags went off and turned my face into a chalky mess. I swallowed that powder and gagged. My mouth tasted like pennies and plastic. It took a second for my brain to catch up with my body. The whole world had that white haze like somebody shook flour into the cabin. My ears rang hard enough, I thought I'd gone deaf. Then the pain started sorting itself out in little bursts. Felt burn across my chest. Jaw sore like I'd been punched. Something sticky on my temple. And my ankle felt like it had been folded the wrong way and left there. I tried to breathe deep and it came back shallow and sharp. I tried to sit up and the car creaked around me, nose buried in mud, rear end angled like it wanted to slide deeper. I yelled anyway. Not a sentence, just sound. It got swallowed by the ditch and came back thin. Up top, trucks hissed past, brake lights flashed, kept going. From down there, the highway looked normal, like I was a dumb animal in a hole on the side of it. I reached for the hazard button and my hand slipped on the dust. The dash lights were dead. I tried the ignition out of reflex and got one weak click. No kerang. I kept hearing little pings as hot metal cooled. I smelled burned plastic, that sweet chemical stink from airbags, wet dirt. I told myself, no smoke, no fire, don't pass out. My phone flew somewhere. I crawled, found it under the seat, screen cracked for percent. No signal. I tried calling anyway until it died. I slapped it against my palm like I could shock life into it. Held it up toward the windshield, toward the guardrail, toward anything. Nothing. I tried 911 again and again until the last percent vanished and the screen went black. That's when the panic actually hit. Without a phone, you're not a person out here. You're just debris. I dug around for anything with light and found nothing but napkins and receipts. I started laughing, this ugly little laugh that turned into a cough. Then I shut up because laughing felt like wasting oxygen. I kicked the door. It opened an inch and stuck on packed mud. I shoved until my shoulder burned and squeezed out. Cold at my lungs. My ankle wouldn't hold weight, so I dragged myself toward the guardrail, clawing at frozen grass. The ditch wall wasn't just steep, it was slick, carved out like a chute. My palm slid on wet clay. Every pull made my ankle fold and I'd slide back down, grit in my mouth. I grabbed at roots, ripped nails, kept going because staying by the car felt like waiting to get finished by something I couldn't see. Headlights strobed over the rail. I could see tires and spray off the road. I screamed until my throat felt skinned. I waved my arm, and it looked like a weak, drowning gesture. Halfway up, a man appeared on the shoulder and looked down like he was checking a trap. He didn't shout for help. He watched me crawl. Relief hit first, stupid and automatic. A person, a witness, a ride. He didn't move like help, though. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, head tipped, waiting to see if I'd make it. He came down slow and stopped just out of reach. He held my phone in his hand, my dead phone, like he'd picked it up off the road. It didn't even compute. He'd had time to find my phone, but not time to call. He dangled it loose, like bait. I reached for it, and he stepped back. I reached again, and he did it again, one lazy step, like this was funny. Up close I saw his eyes, calm in a way that made my stomach turn. I tried to talk and my voice came out shredded. I told him my ankle was fucked. I told him to call someone. I told him I'd pay him. I said whatever my brain coughed up because I needed him to switch into human mode. He didn't answer. He just watched my hands like he was tracking how strong I still was. He smiled and shook his head. Then he crouched, grabbed my wallet out of my jacket, and stood again. That's when my brain dropped the maybe he's helping bullshit. He flipped it open, thumbed through cards, and landed on the cash fast. He took his time. He wasn't scared of getting caught, because nobody was looking down here but him. I snapped and tried to get up. I planted my bad foot and it folded. I swung at him and my arm moved like wet laundry. I grabbed at his sleeve and got air. He took my keys next, quick, like he knew where to reach, and the metal scraped my skin on the way out. I said I'd report him. I said I'd remember his face. He looked at me like you look at a broken appliance making noise. He kicked my injured ankle once, not to kill me, just to make me stop trying. Pain blew out everything. I made this animal sound, and my hand popped open. He didn't stomp. He didn't rage. He just tapped it like you'd kick a dog off your porch, and he watched me fold up around it like it proved something. He took my keys, my wallet, my coat. He climbed back up and walked away in a passing headlights like he belonged there. I listened for his steps to come back. I listened for him to laugh. All I heard was traffic and my own breathing getting faster. I stared up at the shoulder where he'd been and tried to picture him climbing into someone else's warm car, rubbing his hands, acting normal 5 minutes after leaving me to freeze. That thought made me angry enough to move and scared enough to hurry. The coat was the worst part. Not the money, not the plastic, not the keys. The coat meant he looked at me shivering and decided, yeah, let her freeze. I watched him disappear, and then I tried, one more time, to haul myself up after him. My arm shook out, my ankle collapsed, and I slid back down into the mud like the ditch was pulling me in. I crawled back to the wreck because at least metal blocks wind. The seatbelt buckle fought me because my hand was shaking so hard. I slammed the latch and it finally clicked. I folded into the driver's seat and wrapped my arms around myself, trying to trap heat, trying to keep blood moving to my fingers. My ankle throbbed in waves. Cars kept passing above me, close enough to feel in my ribs. A few times I heard tires slow and my heart jumped, and then they sped back up. Either they didn't see or they saw and decided it wasn't their problem. Down in the ditch, those two things feel the same. I forced myself to stay awake. I rubbed my hands together until the skin felt raw. I tucked them under my armpits and counted breaths. I whispered numbers just to prove I was still here. The cold got meaner. My teeth rattled so hard my jaw hurt. My hands went from numb to this deep burning, like they were thawing even though they weren't. I kept replaying his smile. Not wide, not movie villain shit. Just a small, satisfied grin, like finding a wallet on the ground and deciding the owner doesn't get it back. I stayed in the ditch until dawn, shaking so hard my teeth hurt. A plow finally saw the wreck bumper and called it in. Blue lights slid down the wall like water. Hands reached in, grabbed my shoulders, talked calm at me while my body tried to crumple from cold and pain. They got a board under me. They lifted me, and the movement made my ankle flare so hard I saw spots. In the ambulance, the medic asked why my hands were blue, but my wrists were bare. I told her the truth, and she made a face like she'd heard it before. That face fucked me up more than the kick. Not surprise, not outrage, just tired understanding, like she'd picked up too many people off roadsides, and too many times the story wasn't crash, but someone saw an opening. She pulled the blanket higher, cranked the heat, and kept checking my fingers like she expected them to turn black. She asked if I knew him, if he said anything, if he took more than cash. I kept shaking my head and trying not to cry, because crying made my chest hurt. Later I filed reports, canceled cards, replaced keys, bought another coat. People kept saying I was lucky. I nodded because that's what you're supposed to do, but it didn't feel like luck. The blowout was random. The rest was a choice. A person looked at me in a ditch and decided the safest thing to do was take from me and walk away. I keep replaying the rail. He could have waved somebody down. He could have shouted. He could have been the reason I told this like a miracle. Instead, he watched me crawl like I was entertainment. Then he took what he wanted and left. The highway didn't finish me. A person did what the storm and the crash couldn't, then left me there to figure out whether I deserved to live. My tablet pinged a roadside assist on a dead stretch. No mile marker, just silver sedan hazards. I rolled up slow, lights on, winch ready. The sedan sat perfect on the shoulder, hood down, hazards blinking like a heartbeat. No driver, no footprints, just one door cracked, like it got left as an invitation. I've worked wrecks where people were half in the median and still waving, still trying to live. This wasn't that. This looked composed. I didn't even like how straight the car sat, like somebody parked it with a tape measure. I eased my flatbed in front of it, angled so my headlights washed the whole scene and my bed blocked my side a little. I kept the engine running. I grabbed my flashlight, the winch remote, and my knife because I'm not some cherry mascot. Wind slapped my jacket. Trucks blasted past and shook the air around my legs. I walked up, aimed my light through the glass, and saw a purse on the passenger seat and a phone face down in the center console area. Not tossed, placed. The purse was open just enough to show a wallet edge, like a little hint. The phone sat face down like it didn't want me seeing a screen, like it didn't want me seeing a call log, like it didn't want me seeing that it was recording. There was that cheap pine air freshener stink bleeding out of the crack door, the kind people use to cover cigarettes or rot. I didn't see any mess in back. No jacket, no coops, no kiji krap, no hissapes. It looked like nobody lived in it. I scanned the shoulder, the ditch, the tree line. No crushed grass, no scuffs, no I ran down here to puke footprints. The dirt was dry. If someone walked there, I should have seen it. I thought about hitting unsafe and leaving. Then I pictured dispatch calling me, telling me I'm being dramatic, telling me I owe them a tow fee. That pissed me off enough to make me do what I always do when I'm annoyed. Finish the job fast and get gone. I decided I'd hook it from my bed and drag it 10 feet. Nothing heroic, no wandering around looking for a missing person. I turned to head back to my truck, and that's when the cable loop snapped around my ankles from behind. It hit like a trap. Somebody yanked. My feet shot out and I slammed the asphalt hard enough to wring my teeth. My flashlight skipped away into the gravel and my knees lit up like someone drove nails through them. The cable bit tight, thin steel with a crimped sleeve, not random scrap. Hands grabbed my collar and started dragging me toward the ditch. Not clumsy either. It felt coordinated. One pull on my legs, one pull high, like they wanted me to fold and slide. I tried to dig my fingers into the shoulder gravel, and it just scraped my nails. A semi blew past, and the wind rocked me, and nobody slowed down. That's the sick part one still think about. All those headlights, all that noise, and I was still basically invisible because I was just another roadside mess nobody wanted to touch. I rolled, got my knife out, and cut the cable once. The blade caught my glove first. I didn't care. I cut again and felt the tension snap loose enough to free one leg. The cable whipped and slapped the ground. I got a boot into the gravel and tried to scramble, and someone kicked me in the ribs. Hard. It knocked the air out of me and I saw stars, but it also made me angry in that cold way where your body stops negotiating. I didn't stand. I crawled under my flatbed like an animal and kicked at whatever came near me. Boots appeared at the edge under the bed. Thick work boots, not some kid's shoes. I hooked my heel into one and yanked, and the boot slipped and slammed into the frame. I heard a grunt. I kept kicking because it was the only thing I had. One of them dropped lower and reached under, fingers clawing for my ankle. I stomped down and felt knuckles smash against steel. I could hear their breathing, steady, not panicked. That freaked me out more than the kick. People who are steady in the dark aren't improvising. I reached up, slapped the winch remote, and fed line fast. My hand shook so bad I almost hit the wrong button. The winch motor screamed, and the whole bed vibrated, and the sound changed the air. It made them hesitate. I kept feeding line blind, dragging the hook toward the sedan's rear tow point. I didn't get up to do it right. I just needed metal to bite metal. The hook caught. I felt it. I didn't secure shit. I didn't check. I hit pull. The winch screamed harder. The sedan lurched like it was weightless. Gravel popped under its tires. It slid off the shoulder toward the ditch, and I heard one of them shout, more a burst of rage than a word. Boots scrambled above me, fast like somebody was trying to reach the sedan before it moved. I kept pulling anyway because now the car was my weapon. The sedan tipped nose first and dropped into the brush. The hazards blinked twice through weeds, then the angle killed them and it went dark. The instant it vanished, the hands stopped grabbing for me. That's not a detail I'm proud of remembering, but I do. It wasn't like they fought harder. It was like the plan just collapsed the moment the bait wasn't sitting pretty on the shoulder anymore. I stayed under the truck for one more second, listening, knife up, waiting for a face to dip down with a gun or a bar. I heard boots run away along the shoulder, quick, and then nothing but highway noise. I slid out on the passenger side, climbed into my cab, slammed the lock down, and just sat there shaking like a dog. Then I floored it. My hands jerked so hard I missed a gear. I cursed loud and punched the shifter until it caught, and I stayed on the gas. Every set of headlights behind me looked like it was closing too fast. Every dark gap looked like it could be a truck with no plates. 2 miles later, my tablet refreshed, and the job canceled itself. Not customer canceled, not dispatch canceled, just gone, like the call never existed. I pulled over at the next exit, heart hammering, and tried calling the number attached to the request. Dead tone, not even a recorded message, just nothing. I drove back to the yard with my knees glued together because every bump sent pain up my legs. Dispatch took one look at the blood and still tried to act annoyed, like I was making their night complicated. I shoved my tablet in front of the night guy and he stared at the screen, then at his monitor, then back at me like I was trying to prank him. He pulled the logs. Nothing. He searched by time window. Nothing. He said maybe I accepted an old order and it glitched. That pissed me off so bad I almost climbed the counter. I pointed at my knees and told him to stop talking to me like I fell out of a tree. He finally called the manager on duty, then the tech guy. Then they all did that same thing where they get quiet and start using careful words because now they can't pretend I'm just whining. The request ID didn't match any of our normal sources. Not police, not insurance, not the usual roadside contract. It was just blank, like it came from nowhere. They offered to document an incident, like I scraped a bumper, like it was some workplace safety memo. I told them to call the cops. I wanted a report. I wanted a paper trail. I wanted someone official to say I wasn't hallucinating a fucking cable around my ankles. A state trooper showed up later, took my statement, looked at the cut cable end I brought in, and did that neutral face thing like he'd seen too much to react anymore. He asked where it happened, asked if I saw a second vehicle, asked if I got a plate. I didn't. I told him I was busy not getting dragged into a ditch. He nodded like that answer annoyed him, but also made sense. He said they'd check the area. I didn't sleep worth a damn. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt that yank again, felt asphalt scrape my palms, felt my ribs flare from that kick. The next day, I drove back out there in daylight with another guy from the yard because I wasn't doing a solo return to the scene like some brave movie idiot. We parked far back and walked the shoulder. The grass by the ditch was flattened and snapped, like something heavy went down and something else ran around it. The brush was torn up. There were scuffed gravel marks that looked like a scramble. But the sedan wasn't there. Not in the ditch. Not wedged in trees. Not off to the side. Nothing. Like it got plucked out overnight. We found one tiny red plastic shard in the weeds. Could have been a tail light, could have been garbage. That was it. No tow truck drag marks. No broken glass field. No obvious trail. The troopers never called me back with anything useful. Dispatch acted like it was a weird glitch and moved on, because that's what companies do. They move on from your fear like it's a spilled drink. I kept working because rent doesn't care if you almost got taken. But I started treating every no location, hazards on call like a loaded gun. I stopped stepping into the dark without my truck between me and whatever was out there. I started locking my cab the second I got out. I started thinking about how easy it is to bait someone who's trained to help. And the one thing that keeps sticking in my head, even when I'm trying to laugh it off with the guys at the yard, is that cracked door. Not wide open, not closed, just cracked like it was meant for one person to see it and think, yeah, I'll check, I'm a good guy, it's my job, it's fine. I washed blood off my knees and kept thinking about that cracked door like the highway itself had tried to bait me. I drove specimens between clinics at night because the pay was decent and nobody asked questions. I kept the cooler buckled in like it was a person, because if it tipped and a vial cracked, I'd spend the next week getting screamed at by people who never leave their warm offices. Barcodes, chain of custody forms, little tamper stickers that look official until you need one at 3 a.m. and your hands are numb. The storm had rolled through earlier and left black ice in dirty strips. My wipers squeaked. I was running late already. My supervisor had texted twice about the lab window, like I could argue with weather. I kept my phone face down because I didn't want that glow in my eyes. The cooler bounced in the passenger seat anyway, seatbelt tight across it, and each bump sounded like a warning. Halfway between exits, I saw a figure on the shoulder waving. Not frantic, deliberate. One arm up, the other cradling something against their chest like a baby bundle. I eased off the gas, then I didn't. My brain did the decent person math. Stop. Ask if they need help, call someone. Don't be the asshole who drives past. Then my gut cut in hard. Why are they that calm? Why are they standing that close to the lane? Why do you feel like the whole shoulder is staged? My gut won. As I passed, the bundle shifted and the streetlight hit it for half a second. Hard plastic, an empty infant carrier, no blanket, no baby, nothing. The person turned their head and tracked my plate like they were reading it out loud, slow and careful. That moment was like swallowing ice. I didn't think maybe. I thought fuck. I pushed the speed up and my tires hissed over a slick patch. The back end floated for a heartbeat and then caught. My stomach climbed into my throat and stayed there. I kept looking in the mirror, even though I told myself not to. I saw darkness, and that made it worse. Darkness hides a car with its lights off. Darkness hides someone crouched behind a guardrail. Darkness hides the second and third person you don't see until you stop. I took the next exit, looped back, and I didn't go down to the shoulder. I didn't want them close enough to touch my door. I pulled onto an overpass shoulder where I could see the stretch from above. Gravel crunched under my tires. I tucked in behind the guardrail and killed my headlights like I was the criminal. I kept the engine running because I didn't trust my battery in that cold, and I didn't trust my luck at all. My hands shook so bad my phone tapped the steering wheel while I tried to focus the camera through windshield grime. I dropped it once and it thudded into the console. I swore out loud at myself, wiped my palm on my jeans, and started recording again. The figure with the carrier stayed near the white line, resetting like bait. Then two more figures stepped out of the dark median and walked to the exact spot where a decent person would pull over. One crouched low like they were checking the ground or looking for something. One stood with hands in pockets, just waiting. No panique, no help, just a quiet, patient stance that made my skin crawl. A car rolled up with its lights off and stopped behind them like it belonged. The timing was too clean. The car didn't hesitate. It slid into place, dark as an unmarked bruise, and the three of them moved around it like they'd rehearsed. The carrier person angled their body toward traffic again, ready for the next driver who couldn't live with themselves if they didn't stop. I recorded until my fingers cramped. Every time a truck passed, the wash of headlights lit them up for a blink. In those blinks, I caught pieces. One guy's thin beard, another's hood cinched tight. The carrier person's face turned away until a flash hit their cheekbone. They weren't kids messing around. They weren't stranded. They were working. One of them looked up toward the overpass once, not straight at me, but close enough that I ducked anyway. My heart hammered so hard I felt it in my teeth. I slid lower in the seat and held the phone at an angle, like that would make me invisible. I kept thinking about my plate again, about how they'd already seen it, about how easy it is to find out where someone lives if you want to. I sent the video to my supervisor first because my job had trained me to report up before I reported out. I hated myself for that too. The response came back fast and cold. Don't get involved. Keep moving. You're late. Like I'd just seen a deer. That pissed me off so hard my hand steadied. I forwarded the file to the State Patrol tip line. Then I called. I gave mile markers and direction. I described the fake carrier, the extra people, the lights-off car. I try to keep my voice flat because I didn't want to sound like a caller who watches too much true crime. I wasn't making a theory. I was watching it happen. While I was on the phone, a sedan slowed in that stretch. Brake lights bloomed. The carrier person stepped forward. The crouching one rose. The dark car behind them shifted, like it was ready to swallow the sedan's rear bumper. My stomach clenched so tight it hurt. The sedan hesitated for a second that felt like a whole minute. Then it sped up and kept going. Relief hit me like nausea. I almost laughed, but nothing about it was funny. I stayed there and kept recording because I didn't trust them to stop. I watched them reset again like nothing happened. Eventually, another semi came through and the shoulder got lit up long enough that the group backed off, not running, just drifting away into the median like smoke. The lights-off car rolled forward and then melted back into dark. They didn't peel out. They didn't panic. That was the scariest part. It wasn't messy. It was controlled. I ended the call, shoved my phone in my pocket, and drove hard until the city lights came back and the road got busy enough that nobody could slide in behind me unseen. I didn't relax at red lights. I kept the doors locked and my foot ready on the gas. At the next clinic drop, I grabbed the cooler, signed the form, and watched the tech scan it like I was just another guy delivering another box. My hands were still jittery, and I had to steady the pen with my other hand so my signature didn't look like a seizure. Back in my car, I sat there for a minute with my forehead against the steering wheel, breathing like I'd been sprinting. I checked my mirrors 3 times before I pulled out. I took weird turns on purpose. I did the paranoid thing where you circle a block to see if anyone follows. Nothing. Still, I didn't feel safe. I felt like the night had fingerprints on me. A week later, an officer called and asked for the full file. They didn't waste time. They'd hit 3 other drivers the same night, fast, clean, and mean. The officer didn't dress it up. One guy got dragged out and dumped in a ditch. One woman got boxed in and lost her car and her phone and had to walk for help. An older couple had someone try their door while the carrier person kept waving like a prop, like a sick little performance. Mine was the first footage that showed faces and the car they used. The officer asked about timestamps, edits where I was parked, what I saw with my own eyes. They asked it like they had to build a wall out of facts, because without that wall, it's just another horror story somebody tells and nobody believes. I sent everything, raw file, original message thread, the exact moment the carrier flashed empty plastic. When I hit send, my stomach flipped like I'd handed them something dangerous. After that, my supervisor tried to act like nothing happened. They still texted about windows and routes and lateness. I snapped back once and they wrote me up. That's the kind of world it is. People can hunt on the shoulder of a highway, and the thing that costs you money is tone in a text. I didn't feel heroic. I felt sick. I kept picturing that empty carrier flashing in my headlights, and how close I came to cracking my door, because I'm not a monster and I don't want to leave people on the shoulder. I kept thinking about how they watched my plate, how they were ready for me to be decent, how my own instincts try to talk me into getting hurt. I started taking surface streets, even when it cost me time. I started recording my drives like a coward with a plan. I bought a cheap dash cam and stuck it to the windshield with shaking hands. Then I checked it obsessively like it was a talisman. I quit a month later and told them I wasn't hauling other people's blood through dark highways for a company that treated me like a stopwatch. I replaced my wipers the next day like that mattered, and I stopped taking that highway entirely. When my phone rings from an unknown number, my first thought is still their eyes on my plate. I still see stranded cars sometimes, and my body tenses before my brain does. I still hear that calm wave in my head, still see the flash of empty plastic, still feel how easy it would have been to open my door for the wrong person. They used that decency like a tool.